Well, for more on the story, we're joined by former Cosatu member and analyst Ebrahim Harvey. Ebrahim, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. So if we're to read what we saw today as a sign of the times, what exactly does that sign say?
Thanks, Kathy. It says a whole lot of things, you know. In order of priority, this is what it says. Quite clearly, Cosatu's leadership is under massive pressure from its own rank and file. We are in the worst socio-economic political crisis in the entire history of this country, and particularly in post-apartheid South Africa. At this particular conjuncture is converging various crises. And what happened today, I mean, you know, Gwede Mantashe, I felt sorry for him. I know him well. I've worked with these people in the 1980s. He was terribly embarrassed. I mean, for that, what a slap in his face, you know. But it's an expression. He's chairman of the ANC, don't forget. So for Cosatu members to reject, to even refuse to allow him to speak, which I think was a tactical error, I argued earlier today on another interview. They should have allowed Gwede to speak and then pose questions to him as sharp as they wanted. And it's Cosatu's Congress. Gwede would have been compelled to answer those questions. This is what they missed, that opportunity. They were angry with a lot of things. And don't forget, towards the end of last week, the public sector wage talks collapsed. So they're on the verge of another public sector wage strike. And you see what happened in 2021. The ANC government reneged on the last leg of the 2018 public sector wages. They've not forgotten that. And now they're back to square one with a lousy 3% wage offer. So the public sector workers, and it's spreading throughout Cosatu, besides public sector workers are, Kathy, right now, people, over 10 million people are going to bed hungry. The malnutrition, hunger has grown across this country, and particularly in rural areas, but in urban areas too. We have the worst situation. So I'm not surprised. But, you know, I've argued for over 2 decades that the Cosatu has been little more than electoral cannon fodder for the ANC, returning it to power, and look how they treated Cosatu. But I think it was scandalous and treacherous what they did with the 2021, when workers needed that pay increase to deal with the impact of COVID. It was devastating COVID, and they refused to, went to court and unfortunately won that case. So Cosatu's members are in high time. Honestly, I support this action. I don't think they're taking a strong stand against the ANC support. I don't think what they did to Gwede is going to do much to advance their cause. They should have allowed him to speak. But we have a very critical juncture, Kathy.
Ebrahim, the workers would have considered the ramifications of not allowing Gwede Mantashe to speak. I wonder how much of it has to do with the fact that over the last couple of years, since there has been this reneging on that wage agreement, there's been nothing else but rhetoric that has come out of cabinet. And clearly, even when you look at the court action that was waged by these workers, the responses by government, they were not changing their minds. So don't you think workers felt that actually there's probably nothing different, nothing new that Gwede Mantashe was going to say?
Probably that, but also remember that there's a big facet of this growing crisis and it's an explosive combustible crisis, electricity. And remember, Gwede Mantashe is at the center of this electricity crisis. If you look at the ministerial portfolio he is responsible for. But, Kathy, I'll tell you something which I think is happening. You see, Gwede comes from the trade union movement. Cyril, all these guys, the Minister of Finance, all of them come from the trade union movement. And Cosatu workers are waking up. You can see it. Thinking that this is what our leaders of yesterday in the trade unions, that when they got into government, they didn't care so much about the very workers that voted for them in every election from 1994. So you get a sense of its payback time. You get a sense that workers have decided now they are tired of being little more than cannon fodder, conveniently so for the ANC. It's time to really honor the demands and to deal with these interests that are growing of the black working class. You can see what's happening. I mean, basic service is a mess in the townships. The roads are messed up, potholes, water, sanitation. We've got not just an electricity crisis. Go and see what's happening with water supply, Kathy, across the country. It's the biggest socio-economic crisis ever. I argue ever in the history of South Africa, and certainly in post-apartheid South Africa. And that's very briefly the environment, the context which unfortunately Gwede found himself at the receiving end of the anger of workers. I mean, no, this has never happened on the first day of Cosatu Congress, never ever, which it just captures very accurately how combustible the situation is. This is a huge, multifaceted, unprecedented and explosive crisis that is gripping this country, and you can see what happened today at the Congress, you know.
Well, workers in raising some of their arguments are pointing to that 3% increase that, of course, members of the executives and of the executive and other heads of institutions will receive. But of course, when we look at their salaries comparative to those of what ordinary public servants would be, there is no comparison. It pales, in fact. And that seems to be at the heart of the argument that, you know, those in leadership are always ensuring that their pockets are greased, for lack of a better phrase, whereas workers who are the lowest earners are having to bear the brunt of the state of the economy, the lack of jobs, and the financial fallout, effectively, that we have seen in this country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you must know, I mean, if you take the nurses and hospital workers who came out of COVID, I mean, those were the frontline workers that bore the brunt of this pandemic, etc. But you're also raising a very important point, because you got to put that 3% in context. Remember, there's a massive gulf, a chasmic gulf that separates the earnings of public sector workers at the bottom and the ministers and senior officials. So besides that, even if you have a 3% on both sides, you know what that 3% means for those people who are earning 2 million, 1 million, 3 million, and those who are earning, comparatively much less. So the 3% is very different if you look at it. But remember also that this 3% comes with conditions. And one of them was that they would be urging, it seems, pressurizing workers to take early retirement. So it's not just the 3%, and most of the public sector unions have rejected it, although Cosatu's public sector unions have said that they're taking it back to their members to be properly discussed and a decision taken. But you struck a very sensitive chord there, Kathy. It's really disgusting. I mean, this is ANC who runs this government, and they know what the earnings of public sector workers are. They know, they determine it, and in the collective bargaining forums. And so, and the massive chasmic gulf in standards of living. And yet, look what how they reneged on the 2021. I mean, caring very little, I mean, Kathy, the way the ANC has treated the broad black working class and even the members and workers of Cosatu, which is supposed to be part of the alliance, I mean, it's just really absolutely disgusting. The ANC's got what comes for the ANC now, and it gets, whether even in the 2024 elections, the ANC deserves, Kathy. They have to wake up between now and 2024 and get the heads together. Otherwise, I can tell you without any doubt, we're going to have, for the first time ever, a national coalition government. The ANC is going to be knocked off, out of power in 2024, and we're going to have a national coalition government of the ANC, EFF, and the DA. It seems inevitable.
Ebrahim Harvey, we're going to leave it there for today. And of course, we can't forget that on May Day, the president, of course, was also booed off stage, not able to address a gathering convened by Cosatu. So much of a continuation in as far as then the anger and the discontent of workers is concerned.